All right, everyone, how's it going? Automated Matt here again. Got a quick one for you today. Really just going to take a look at two things today. One, just kind of going over my P&L from last week. I was lucky to have another great week last week, which was awesome. And then as well, I wanted to go ahead and just kind of go over one thing that really is just kind of like something that I had to accept recently with automated trading that is actually starting to help me quite a bit, that I think a lot of you may get some value from as well. So just a little tidbit I want to share that I think may be holding a lot of you back from profitability, specifically if you are an automated trader rather than manual trading. So let's get into it here. Let me pull up. All right, there we go. So taking a look at last week, again, another really solid week, and this is only trading 3 MNQ on QZeus and then 4 ES as a base. Well, as a base on each of them, because both these strategies have a bit of a martingale on them. But just trading really conservatively on both of these strategies, the super settings with ES that I went over last week, and then as well with QZeus, which we'll talk about a bit here today as well. But yeah, again, another really solid week. Honestly, most of this profit is pretty much just from the last day. Zeus did martingale to 12, and I did miss out on its losses this week, which is very important. We'll get into that. But I think my total P&L this week on super settings specifically, let me see if I can check this actually, was more or less negative, close to break even, if not negative, maybe 100. Okay, so I actually lost about $300 last week trading the super settings, whereas Zeus I was able to make about an extra $1,100 last week, which is pretty sweet. And again, super settings are the settings I trade on the 1 minute ES chart with the Q Chronos Evo from QuantView, and then the Q Zeus that I mentioned is a separate algorithm, more of a plug and play kind of dumbed down version of Q Chronos Evo, which I'm trading on MNQ, but based off the NQ chart. So again, 1100 last week, pretty sweet. But the big thing that I really wanted to talk about with all of you this week was just, this is gonna be crazy, but just starting to use kind of common sense again when you're trading. You know, when I first started this channel, a big thing that I talked about with all of you, right, was I want something that's truly set and forget, something that's hands off, that you're not involved in at all, and something that is truly just set and forget, hands free, fully automated. And I've come to realize that while that idea is really great in principle, it's not always super achievable just because of the reality of what is at least currently available for retail traders like myself, and probably for those of you that are watching this. Now, things may get better in the future here shortly with ATS 2.0 when that does come out from QuantView. However, we'll see. But for now, we do have to be a bit more mindful with our automated trading. So what do I mean by that, right? So when I look at, for example, QZeus this week had a very heinous loss. It was, let's see, it entered on, this 735 candle around 962, and then close at 847, so over 120 point loss. Now, granted, what we're looking at here is NQ, but just divide that by 10. I mean, that would have been a really big $600 loss on this account. That would have eaten into over half of this week's profits, right? Why didn't I trade this day? Why did I have my algorithms just turned off completely? I'll tell you why. We go up to, what is that? We go to Wednesday from last week. Look at this right here. FOMC. Statement and press conference. When big red folder news events like this happen, this is when you don't want to be trading. This is when you do, well, maybe you want to do manual trading. I think it's very reasonable that traders can capitalize on these big moments that happen from these, various news things, trading manually. But when you're automated, it's very possible, like in this case here, that your algorithm may get kind of confused or wicked out, or things might go south all of a sudden out of nowhere from a news announcement like they did in this case. and then you're just down significantly out of nowhere, right? And then same thing on this next day. This was, again, fortunately a more minor loss, but again, on this day here, I knew, okay, Trump is speaking, and for me, that is a big no-no for automated trading. If the sitting president is speaking, I'm just never going to run automation in those cases. So again, this was another example of me just deciding to not run automation at all that day and just letting the markets do their thing. And I just said, hey, I'm going to sit out, and that's fine. And I also was sitting out on my super settings for ES as well. And then finally, we had a pretty clean news day on Friday. And I said, okay, great. I'm going to go ahead and just fire up automation and let it do its thing. And look at that. Lo and behold, a beautiful win. That was like, what, let's see, 35. That closed right around here. 50-ish point win on QZeus on 12 MNQ. That got me over $1,000 just from that trade alone. Pretty freaking sweet, right? So just a good reminder for everyone with all your strategies. I think you can maybe be a little more flexible if you're trading with Rankos for your automation, just with the way they treat price. But specifically with candlesticks, if you're automating on candles, be very, very cautious and very, very mindful of when you're running your automation when these big red folder news events are happening. My rule of thumb, and shout out to Tucci in the QuantView Discord, he really brought attention to this. If there's any red folder news that's happening around 7, I will always start my automation typically 20 minutes after. I literally have separate alerts that I turn on for it, where the automation just starts at 7:20, specifically for QZeus and for my super settings MES. If it's happening before that, before 7, like at say 5:30, like it did today, but again, I didn't do it today because I knew Trump was speaking. But again, example today would have been a day where maybe I ran automation if there wasn't Trump speaking. I would have just started normally because it's at 5:30, well before the market opens here in the US, right? But any red folder news that's either at 7 or afterwards in the day, I'm either just pausing my automation, turning on after, or again, in the case of this one here with FOMC, I'm just not running anything at all in those days. And that's a great example of me being able to avoid massive loss because I made that decision. And then on Friday, when it was a relatively normal news day, no major red folder news here in the US, I was able to bag a pretty sweet win of $1,200, just about. So food for thought. Be mindful when you're using your automation on those big news days, and I think you'll have a lot more green days. Probably, hopefully, going to make a lot more money, or not. This isn't financial advice. This could all go south any moment. I could end up losing all my money somehow next week. I hope that doesn't happen, but this is all still uncharted waters, right? Some of it largely, and automation is still any trading, right? You need to be prepared to lose whatever you decide to trade with. So always have that mindset. Be mindful of your news days. And I think you'll be in very good shape, I hope. And two, other big thing, just be patient with it, everyone. Whether you're going for base hits or just trading with an algorithm like Zeus that only trades, every other day here and there, you don't need to make, you don't need a Lambo by next week, right? Just be patient, let these algorithms do their things, and I think you'll probably make some good money. Whether you're using QuantView or whatever your algorithm of choice is that's hopefully profitable for you, just be patient with it. So, as always, if you want to know or get the algorithms that I use, you can go ahead and check out QuantView here at quantview.io. Got some links in my bio. Of course, those are affiliate links. You can check out their stuff, check out their pricing, and check out their ATS program, which I think is going for like $7,000 right now, or maybe a little bit cheaper if you pay with, I think, crypto. So there's that option for you there. Or, of course, as well, you can just do their Elite to get most of it. Well, not EVO, unfortunately. These two are strictly ATS. But you can get pretty comparable versions if you just use this Q Chronos strategy here. And then if you do want to automate just in your cash account, you don't care about QuantView or you don't care about their ATS or anything like that, I recommend Alert Dragon. It is what I use to automate all my stuff for my cash account. It's pretty fast. No issues with it generally. Can't complain. Alright, everyone. Well, that is all I got for you today. I hope this was slightly educational. I hope we all have a great week. I think this will be going live Monday morning, so let's all make some money this upcoming week. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and have an amazing week. Thanks, everyone.